Thinking is the only way that you get to see the universe naked. I think you gotta have a little Loki in you to think about wanting to see the universe naked, but I think that's really all I've ever wanted, is to catch a glimpse of that lady without her slip. And I've been I've been there. I had a wonderful week last week. I talked about it last Sunday, and lived it all this week, putting the book 9 Empathies to bed, putting it to press, releasing it, a book that I conceived of on Friday. One week on Friday was a book, the next day on Saturday was a book on Amazon on that Monday, and was a book available for sale by Thursday. I was promoting it for sale by Thursday. We had free distribution on Friday that too few people took advantage of, I'm sad to say. My reason for making it free was to get a lot of people to take it for free. My reason for putting a price on it was to institute the idea of pain in the transaction, because, sad to say, people don't know how to appreciate free books. People take free books and never read them. And, my interest is not in selling books. My interest is in having my books read. I don't really care about money, and that may be obvious to you by looking at my sartorial splendor, but I just don't. It's not on my radar at all. I am a D, and I've been kind of talking about that too. We'll get to it. I am at a place now, Friday, free book. Saturday morning, I started working through some of the implications for the ideas of reptilian and mammalian empathy that I developed for 9 Empathies, and I ended up with a spreadsheet that is now, I think, like 25 or 26 columns wide, different discriminations among types of behavior and motivation that I can make on the basis of those discriminations among types of empathy. One of the ways you have of knowing if your theory has any validity to it is if it answers questions that you couldn't answer with the old theoretical model, if it answers questions that you never thought to ask before, if it answers more questions, than it leaves unanswered. And I don't think I've hit any unanswered questions yet. To the contrary, I think I have the teleontology of is, and this is really uniquely Church of Splendor way of saying things. The word teleontology I invented yesterday to describe the philosophy that is actually defended in Man Alive. I didn't give it that name then. I didn't know what to call it. I said teleologically consonant ontology. This is what I'm defending, is teleologically unconsonant teleology, or ontology, blah, 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 blah. I'm sleeping way too little. I'm sleeping almost not at all. It begins to tell in the small things. Teleologically consonant ontology, or ontologically consonant teleology. That's the right way of saying it, ontologically consonant teleology. But I just shortened that into teleoontology because I think it means the same thing, that studying human beings as a unique type of entity, not genetic Homo sapiens, but genetic Homo sapiens within whom the gift of mind has been cultivated as previously defended. And I'm not going to defend what I mean by that here, but you know exactly what I mean. The ones you can talk to are humans, and the ones you can't talk to aren't. If you want to make fuzzy line distinctions, feel free, but I can tear your fuzzy line distinction apart in 3 questions. I promise you. I can distinguish a thinking mind from a mimicking mind, and that's what toddlers are, is mimicking minds. They mimic human behavior without really understanding it. When they wake up, they let you know right away. They say, "You're not the boss of me." They understood everything. I've written about this elsewhere, and you can go find it. If you search for Greg Swann, "You're not the boss of me," you'll find it. But children have completely defended a complete teleontology in order to make that statement, in order to say those words. You're not the boss of me. Say it, mean it. To say it when, you can tell when a child is, issuing an expostulation because he thinks it's going to get a laugh, even though he doesn't know what it means. You can tell when he really means it when your child says, awesome. Child is a human being. I love that. I love that graduation. I love to be around children when they're at that point, 4, 5, 6, when they're just growing into their minds. Oh, it's so wonderful. They can think as well as Socrates, and they don't know how to lie. That's why I like them best. My favorite people on earth are 5. I love 5-year-olds. As companions, as friends, as people who can tell me about the world without guile, and who can listen to me talk about the world without unfounded doubts, suspicions. Just take in what I say and take it all as magic, because you can do that when you're that age. I really love it. In any case, I, yesterday, in the form of a spreadsheet, which is really alien to me, but in the form of a spreadsheet, I documented everything I have figured out so far about human motivation. And what I have figured out so far about human motivation is everything. I have the teleontology of anthropology, if you prefer. If I say of is, then I'm implying all of metaphysics, but I really don't care. No one actually cares about metaphysics. People only care about epistemology for ethical purposes, for purposes of moral philosophy. The only reason to care whether or not you know how to validate your knowledge is in the pursuit of some purpose. Knowledge, we seek values because we're organisms. We seek values because we're alive, and in order to remain alive, we must pursue values. And we only pursue values for that reason. And pursuing values by means of validly demonstrated theoretical propositions is only useful or necessary, only actually done in pursuit of values. That a so-called brain in a vat or whatever, a computer with an infinite power supply, all of these stupid postulations for existence that don't have the essential properties of living organisms, living existence. Nevertheless, without that motivation, without the need, and this is one of the arguments that Ayn Rand made in The Virtue of Selfishness, that it is the pursuit of values, it's teleology that creates everything, and it's really only teleology as it relates to human beings. Teleology is the root of philosophy, and it's the root of philosophy because human beings don't know how to live. They don't know how to survive. That no other organism is aware of the intellectual problem of survival, but no other organism has it. Every other thriving species of organism has some means of survival that's basically inborn or easily trained to juveniles, and plug and play. It works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, the species gets wiped out. If it does work, they proliferate. And they don't seek alternatives. They don't have any dissatisfactions. They don't conceptualize, and because they don't conceptualize, they don't share their knowledge with one to another. They don't recruit each other into causes. There are the endless list of things that I could name that only human beings do, that no other organisms do. That the whole dancing bear fallacy is built around the idea that when you get a bear that successfully fools people into thinking that it's dancing instead of just doing some kind of random herky-jerky motion in order to get a piece of beef, and that one thing, that dancing bear, this strange little automaton that does one thing so perfectly, like a player piano that actually plays Bach with feeling. This one thing a robot could never do is have human feeling, have human emotion, and this is what's wrong with the note-for-note style of Tiger Mom music training, too, because the child, instead of having the unbelievable joy and richness of spirit that comes from feeling an incredible piece of music from the inside, what you have a child who is terrorized about making mistakes. There is no joy in that music, and you might as well have a player piano play it, because without the humanity, what's the point? I'm wandering, and this is because I'm tired. I have the ontology of is, and I have the ontology of is in the form of naked pictures of the universe. And I'm publishing them as pornography. The title of my pornography is How Is Does It? It's all of philosophy in one sentence. How is does it? Everything that you could say is true about the universe, you say in that one sentence. How is does it? But in the course of writing this spreadsheet on how is does it, which basically means why human beings do what they do, because it's all we really care about. We can, everything we want to know about the universe, we already really know to the extent that we need to, and everything new that we're going to learn may be momentous, but it's not going to happen this afternoon. Everything that really matters to us is what we do inside our own skin and what we do with the people that we live with, love, work with, play with, the people that we interact with. And therefore, understanding, human motivation really is understanding philosophy, because once I can understand the motivations behind everything, then I can literally explain everything. I have the teleontology of anthropology, but I also have the underlying math of all of game theory. I have a really interesting book on work styles from the point of view of a high D, which is what I am, and I know it inside out, and I'm going to teach people how to work like a high D instead of always trying to work like a high C. Again, playing music for fun, even if you don't do it perfectly, instead of playing music perfectly and never having any fun. And if your work isn't fun, you're doing the wrong thing. The only job that is worth having is the one that you would pay to do. If you manage to get paid for that job, so much the better, but the job that matters to you is the one that you would pay to do, and the one that you would pay to do is the one that you would love to. And you should never be in a situation where you hate what you love to do. And that's really your situation at work right now, that however you feel about whatever it is you've been hired to do, the way that you go about doing it at work is almost certainly unsatisfying to you, because you are being regimented by, you're a mammal being regimented by reptiles. And that sounds like I'm criticizing the reptiles, but I'm not. They get to be who they are, and in being who they are, they do amazing things. That everything that we have, every work of genius in the world, we owe to that high C reptilian impulse and that high D mammalian impulse. It's the two together that made us rich, that made us more than monkeys. I do not criticize it, but it is awful personnel management that we have surrendered the workplace entirely to people who are absolutely the worst possible managers of human resources. The worst. I could fix this. I mean, this is one of many things that I can fix. But anyway, I have a book in me that I built on this spreadsheet yesterday. I have a book in me on work. I think I have another one on love and marriage relationships. I think I can offer the answers to all of the questions that I raised in Father's Day. And when I wrote Father's Day, I was not thinking in terms of a sequel. I thought I was done. But now I understand how to fix all that, and that will be really amazing. Because what's my goal? I mean, you need to understand this. I've told you before, but you need to understand this. My goal is Western civilization, and Western civilization means hoplite fathers with lots of kids. That's what it means. I want fathers who are fully committed to their families, to defending their families, and I want them to have big families. So if I can fix all of those families that are out there now, I'm halfway to my goal just like that. I'm not teasing you about this. This is absolutely what I'm all about. I am taking back splendor from squalor. I'm taking back paradise from shit. And that's what I'm doing, and you're helping, and that's how you're going to help, is by either setting up that kind of a strongly father-headed, intensely self-adorationist household, or contributing to that in the next generation one way or another. This is the way it's going to work. This is how it's going to play out. And I have no idea how long it's going to take, and given how successful I've been at recruiting people so far, it suggests that it might take a long, long time. It easily could be done in 500 days, but I went into this knowing that it could plausibly take 500 years. Every philosophical revolution until now has taken around 500 years. So I threw an anchor in the harbor on April 8th, 2012, when I published Man Alive, and you tell me when the boat stops. We can't turn the boat around until we get it to stop, but you can tell me when the boat stops. But I have a book on work, a book on love, and I have for somebody, I don't think for me, but I have for somebody, maybe David Sklansky or somebody like that, I have a book on gambling. I think I've got a deeper insight into underlying motivations in game theory that no one has ever covered before, and what I've got is really just an outline, because every one of the things that I can document has many layers of implication that can be plumbed from it that I probably won't do. But David Sklansky or someone else who really is aggressively interested in the game theory of gambling, I would love to talk to you about what I've got and see if you can't do something with it. In the midst of all this, I was documenting what I was doing, commenting on it. The spreadsheet is available on Google Drive, and so I made it available publicly. If you look for me on Facebook, you can find the address. But I can't imagine that you'd really love to see a spreadsheet unless you're a high C, and if you do, then all you want to do is reject it, because I'm talking about things that can't and shouldn't be spreadsheeted. It's a spreadsheet about emotions. It's a spreadsheet about emotions. I love it. I love mashups. I love the impossible. I love to take the impossible and mash it together. This is where good fiction comes from. This is where good art comes from, is to take two things that the whole audience thinks cannot ever possibly mix together, and you put it in front of them in a sundae bowl with whipped cream and a cherry on top, and you make them eat it. And that's good art. That's what makes good art, is that kind of mashup. And I love it. I have a really big spreadsheet with copious footnotes about emotion. How to drive the world crazy. Drive the world crazy every which way. People who love emotion hate spreadsheets. People who love spreadsheets hate emotion. I got them both together, and that's what a D is good for. A D is the marriage of both. It's the better marriage of both. The I is the kind of the unhappy marriage of the mammals and the reptiles, but the D is the happy marriage of the mammals and the reptiles. The D is the reptile motivates you with fear, and the mammal motivates you with hope. And the D takes the two and puts them together and makes abundance. So in the midst of this, I found myself writing a comment, and I was referring to myself as the mischievous high D who fixes everything by breaking it all apart. Oh, and that kind of scared me, because I talk about Loki all the time. Skating the fine line between reality and madness. I really don't think I have any madness in me, but I say all kinds of things that crazy people say. I have Kathleen on high alert. I've told her all of the things that crazy people say, what it means when they say it, and what to expect next if they're really nuts. I don't think I am. I really don't. I think I'm amazingly clear. I think I am clearer than I've ever been. I think I am seeing the world for the first time. I mean, really seriously, that in the course of that, you know, Friday to Sunday, what are we talking about, 9 days, that my brain has tripled in size. What I understand about human beings and their motivation is unbelievable. I am at a position where my conviction is that someone should be writing me a 7-figure contract right now to get me off the market, because I am going to be, I'm not there yet, but someday very soon I am going to be a management consultant without peer. I will be able to tell you why your machine is broken and how to fix it. Any machine at all. Your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your job, your company, your multinational corporation, your church group. Any group you're in, it's not working, I'll be able to show you why it's not working, how to fix it. I mean, I can already do most of it anyway. I'm just doing it all the time. Everything I do, everything I see, I'm seeing it. I don't know. It feels like what they illustrated in the Matrix, and it really isn't like that. It's just that I am a step removed. This is what abstraction does. Abstraction distances you from the unique object, but in distancing yourself, you can take in all of the objects of that type. And so you're less directly connected to the real thing, but you're more directly connected to the essence of the thing if you have understood that essence appropriately, if you've got it right. And I have scaled, I think twice, and I'm not sure, it might be 3 times. In other words, 2 or 3 steps back from where I was a week ago Friday. And it feels like a totally different universe. I mean, the universe of the real, my real experience is all the same, but what I see when I look at people and when I see people interact, I see the transactions, I see almost the inevitability of the transactions. It's not truly inevitable because it's not causally inevitable, but it is avoidable causally only by ratiocination, only by conceptualization, only by careful thought. And if you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're going to do the same damn things over and over again. I invented a new word this morning. I call it dispossibility. It's dis, which is the Greek idea suggesting chaos, which I love, and possibility, obviously. It's a form of impossibility as a dispossibility, and a dispossibility is not something that's just impossible and not even truly just simply anti-possible in the sense that your conjecture is of something that could not possibly exist. It just not only doesn't exist, it could not possibly exist. To be anti-possible, it has some anti-reality characteristics that would make it that much more impossible. There's no limit to how many anti-possible things can get, but a dispossible value is one that you can't stop seeking and you can never obtain. And so in the disc motivations, driver, image, social, computational, the dispossible value for a D is productivity. He can never get enough productivity out of other people. Even other Ds, even people who are as D as he is D, the Dest of the Ds will still disappoint him, D for disappointment, when it comes to productivity, that other people will never produce enough to satisfy a D. For image, for I, fascination would be the dispossible value. And it's interesting because it's in the nature of attention that if I can pay attention to you, it's only because I can divert my attention from something else. But the fact that I can divert my attention makes it unsatisfying to an I. Fundamentally unsatisfying, because the only attention that could be truly valuable would be unlimited attention, just as the only productivity that could be of value to a D is unlimited productivity. And other people can't produce in unlimited quantities, and the D will not make the excuses for them that he'll make for himself. The I won't make the excuses for other people that he might make for himself in his own expressions of fascination. Fascination in this context is an anti-challenge, by the way. A challenge is expressed by staring in the form of greeting, and fascination is expressed by staring in the response. It's an anti-challenge, and that's why the I sees it as a value. It looks like challenge behavior, but it's challenge behavior that's known to be non-threatening, that's known to be affectionate instead. That's really interesting, and I just realized that now. This is what you get by coming to the Church of Splendor, is you get to watch me have minor epiphanies on the fly. The S's, social people, the dispossible value for them would be unlimited commitment, that other people will never be as committed to the relationships they're involved in as they think they should be. Even if the person himself is not sufficiently committed, wouldn't view himself as being sufficiently committed if he looked at himself as a stranger or as not himself. Nevertheless, other people are always going to disappoint in that regard. Their commitment is never going to be complete enough. And for the C's, the dispossible value is compliance. Nobody ever fills out the form properly. Nobody ever reads the material in advance. Nobody ever comes with 3 sharpened number 2 pencils. Everyone is always a disappointment in that regard. They're never sufficiently compliant. Where compliance is easy because the rules are all printed in advance. Didn't you read the rules? Didn't you study the rules? Didn't you memorize the rules? Didn't you rewrite the rules? This is a C's world, and this is why your work world is screwed up, by the way. Your home life can be screwed up for other reasons. That every relationship is screwed up for the same reason, the same one general cause, and that would be that one member of the group or more than one member of the group. If it's a marriage, it's both partners, but it could be a larger group. One or more members of the group is constantly looking for the dispossible from the others and never getting it. And the dissatisfaction with the inability to satisfy that dispossible need results in friction and rancor, in conflict. And that conflict escalates. And eventually the relationship either flies apart or turns into a prison camp. Or both. And I now have the ontology, the teleo-ontology of divorce. Give me a few weeks, I will write a book that I think can cure divorce. I think I can cure divorce. If I'm not nuts, I'm the richest man who ever lived. I'm rich in a currency that nobody else respects, but I got more of it than anybody. I mean, more of it. I got 3 times now, 2.5 to 3 times now what I had 8 days ago, 9 days ago. And the epiphanies don't stop. You just saw one. I just realized that fascination is challenge inverted. Inverted is a wonderful word, and I haven't played with it with these ideas anywhere nearly enough. And that's the other thing, is that when I go through this spreadsheet and look at the inversions of the things that I'm talking about, I get a whole new set of answers. And I'm not done, and I'm not the guy to do this. I'm not the guy to do this. What I really have is a roadmap to the beginning of a game theory of everything. And I don't like game theory because I don't like the idea of game. You have to understand game the way that mathematicians do rather than the way that gamers do. Because life is not a game. Life is for real. I much prefer to talk about transactions and patterns or syndromes rather than games. But you can understand everything that I'm talking about as game theory. And if ever anyone who is actually any good at game theory gets involved in the work that I'm doing, it will explode. It will grow by a factor of 20 in no time, because all I've got is implications. I've got brand new implications to a brand new theory, but everything that I look at throws off new implications, and I know that every one of those implications throws off many more implications of its own. I am a universal philosophy. I have broken the logjam in philosophy that has existed since the death of Socrates. I knew I had done that on April 8th, 2012. I knew I had done that. I wrote to that effect. That certainly endeared me to people. It's very high D to brag about your accomplishments, and everybody hates it. And I'm sure that among the high Cs in particular watching this movie, I just infuriated them by saying that I broke the logjam in philosophy. Prove me wrong. Go ahead, prove me wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. This is what makes me a D. This is why I'm a D. I almost said that way. And this is one of the ways that I play with the idea of practical ontology. A young friend of mine some years ago was dealing with Odysseus, our bloodhound, since deceased. But he was dealing with Odysseus and with his little brother, and the little brother was trying to order Odysseus to do something. Do this, do this, do this. And the older brother said, he can't talk. That's how you know he's a dog. And it's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And a brilliant ontological observation. I mean, it's exactly asked backwards, but it's a child. Really brilliant ontological observation, understanding that there is a bright line distinction between animals and people, that the child is brighter than the entire neuropsychology, neurophysiology, neurobiology, neurochemical, the entire social science is part of the quad, and the part of the STEM side of the quad that's devoted to biochemical research of various sorts. None of those idiots know that a dog can't talk because it's a dog, because it's not a person. A 5-year-old boy knew he can't talk. That's how you know he's a dog. And I love those kind of observations. I make them all the time. I did one last week. She shrieks. That's how you know she's a girl. I like to say that you can tell that the Church of Splendor, we're an atheist, egoist, anarchist church. I mean, there isn't any without-ism that you can name. I hate without-isms, by the way. We'll talk about that someday. I don't like negations. I like assertions. I don't like negations. Negations are C, assertions are D. I like assertions. But atheist, anarchist, egoist church, how could it be a church that has an offering plate? That's how you know it's a church. That's practical ontology. If you can't say why, you can't say what. And if you can't show me what, I don't care what you say about why. Why and what live together, or neither one of them exists. And that's How Is Does It. Why How Is Does It is the perfect title for a book of philosophy. We're the only book of philosophy, the book of philosophy, when we're done talking about philosophy. And what I'm saying is that the integrations that I'm making right now may in fact be the beginning of the end of philosophy, that we may end up with a complete and full understanding of human motivation. And frankly, I may have been the theoretical breakthrough that I've been insisting for years has to happen in AI. I really don't know this. I'm not C-oriented at all, and to the extent that anybody's going to do anything with AI, it's going to be Cs who do it. But the arguments of motivation that I'm making are new and unique, and they are producing results, and those results might push you toward better AI. They will certainly push you toward better behaved fake AI, like something like serious fake AI, and in fact everything that you think of as artificial intelligence is not artificial intelligence. It's canned human intelligence, including a poker bot that a friend was telling me about the other day. It's a mistake reduction bot is what it is. That all the money that you make in poker is made on the other guy's mistakes. Poker is a zero-sum game. It's actually a negative-sum game if you allow for the rake and for tips, if you tip the dealer or tip waitresses or whatever. All of your living expenses, food and drink and whatnot, your transportation expenses, all of that comes off your net. So it's negative-sum even if you imagine that every dollar you put on, you're going to take every dollar back off in winnings. No, you won't. You're going to take off 90 cents or less. The only way that you make money in poker is on the other guy's mistakes. That's all the money there is to be made in poker, is for you to win more than you're losing to the rake and to tips and other expenses, and for the other guy to lose more by subsidizing you for those expenses in addition to what he lost gambling. Poker is zero-sum. Stock trading is exactly the same thing. Securities trading is a zero-sum game in exactly the same way. It creates no wealth. To speak of either of these things as manifestations of capitalism is incorrect. Capitalism consists of the production of new wealth, that it consists of taking profit in the form of added increment by adding value to existing values. And there is no added value in either gambling or securities trading, and so both of them are forms of rent-seeking de facto. They're not rent-seeking with government coercion. Well, stock trading really is. But even leaving the government coercion out of both, and that's the argument, poker is pure capitalism. No, poker is pure rent-seeking. It's rent-seeking without coercion. But poker and securities trading are both rent-seeking because they do not create any new value. All they do is shuffle existing values around. But when I hit upon that idea of the mischievous high D who fixes everything by breaking it all apart, I thought of Loki, of course. Because that is the story of Ragnarok. And Loki brings the universe, the entire universe, to its ruin, and it starts over with an Adam and Eve story. And then I realized that I had a god name, which is another thing that crazy people always have. Not always, but often have, is I have a god name. This is Gaius Julius Caesar deciding that he was the divine get of Minerva, whoever, by way of Aeneas, and then passing that madness on to Octavian, who decided to call himself Caesar Augustus, and to name the month of August after himself. But crazy people give themselves god names, and I realized that I had a god name. I said the mischievous high D who fixes everything by breaking it all apart, and there was my god name, Loki Iconoclastes. And I need to purge myself of that idea. I really do, because I don't like gods. I don't like the supernatural. I like Loki when he's having fun, and I don't like Loki when he's destructive. I don't want to be destructive. I am a D, and I am a D in exactly that way. I am a D of hope, and I am a D of abundance, and I am a D of wealth and happiness. But I never want to be the D of destruction. So I need to purge myself of Loki Iconoclastes right away. And so I thought I would have brunch. Sunday brunch with Loki Iconoclastes. That's our theme for today, and that's what we're doing. We're having brunch. I am not the brunch type. I'm not the restaurant type. I'm certainly not the dinner party type. I'm not the party type at all. I hate crowds. I hate strangers. I hate to be among strangers. I hate to be crowded among people that I don't know who can get anywhere close to touching my body. I don't even have to interact with them, just the presence of them. That we say that personal space is 18 inches all around you. Personal space for me is, I start to feel comfortable at about 50, 60 inches. It's the height of a normal man. If you're 6 feet away from me, I don't have any problem with you, but much closer than that. I'm an introvert. This is the way introverts are. I don't like to be around people, and I would never have a brunch, and we're going to have a small brunch even so, because the thought of having a large brunch or a large party of any sort just makes my skin crawl. So we're going to have a brunch, and I think we should have it at at the Arizona Biltmore because I've had brunch there and it's wonderful. It's a beautiful place, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and has a Wright ornament everywhere. It's not completely designed by Wright, but it's so Wright influenced. And I live in Phoenix. There's all kinds of Wright architecture here. I'm married to a museum girl, so I've seen a lot of it. But we'll have brunch at the Arizona Biltmore, and it's going to be a very small brunch because I could not stand the thought of having too many people there. In fact, we're going to have too many no matter what. My wife and one other person, okay, 2 other people, it's kind of hard. It's already kind of hard for me. That's too many strangers. But we're going to have 6 people at this party, including Loki Iconoclastes. I'm not even going to go. I'm going to send him. How do D's go to meetings? They don't go. That's how. How do C's go to meetings? They stay forever. That's how you can tell the difference. The guy who stays at the meeting has more agenda items to add and has a big pile of stuff that he wants to go through. That's a C. The guy who didn't show, the guy who showed up late, the guy who made an excuse to leave early, the guy who's working all through the meeting on his laptop, not just on his phone, that's a D. That's how you can tell the difference. That's practical ontology, and it matters because you live in a real world, not a world of markers on maps. You need to know what it is that you're really navigating, not the navigational markers on the map. But at our brunch, we're going to have my wife, Kathleen Collins, because I won't go anywhere without her. I won't do anything like this without her. She is everything to me, and I've told you all the different ways that she's everything to me, and I've told you all the different ways that she is exceptionally fine and wonderful in every respect that matters to me. But one factor that you may not know about her is that she is my shield. When I was talking a few weeks ago about Jimi Hendrix, one of the things that made Jimi Hendrix a fun character to think about was that he carried his guitar with him everywhere. He always had a guitar with him. If he didn't have a guitar, he had a broom that he pretended was a guitar. And that guitar was a shield for him. When I was in high school, I had a camera. I was the teenage photo geek with the Army gas mask bag on his shoulder, taking, $1,000 worth of photography equipment everywhere, and always putting the camera between me and other people because it's a distancing strategy. It's a shielding strategy. I see all this now. But that's what Hendrix was doing with that guitar, was using it as a shield, and Kathleen is my shield in the world outside of the home. I do things without her. I spent 4 months on the road last year without her, but if I can have her along, I prefer to, and the reason I prefer to have her along is to have her right next to me. So there is somebody that I can turn to and look at and murmur to and touch that I know and trust and don't feel the need to defend myself from. And that's literally the truth, is that when I'm with strangers, I feel defensive. I don't feel safe. And that's what friendship does for me. It gives me a chance to have enough empathy for a person that I know what to expect from them. And until I do, I'm just not comfortable at all. This is what makes introverts introverts. How you know introverts? So Kathleen will be there at my brunch. My grandfather, Johnny Kaseric, will be there, because if I'm going to have a hypothetical brunch involving a hypothetical god that I invented yesterday, I can certainly have my grandfather to lunch. I like the idea of having my grandfather there because I want to show off to him. I had 3 fathers, really. The first is myself, and that's the only one that really mattered. I became my own father at the age of 4. I decided that I was all alone, and I was going to take complete responsibility for my choices, and I did. But my mother was my father before that, and in significant degrees after that, because no matter how independent you decide you are when you're 4, you're not really independent. And my mother was the father that I had in that regard, but the father that I had doing the job that fathers do, in the sense of providing the moral leadership that children need to learn how to properly execute morally responsible lives. That fatherhood I had from my grandfather. His name was Johnny Kaseric. He was my mother's father. And he was always that. He was always an honorable man, a man of deep integrity, a man of really heartfelt values that he never failed to follow through on. I admire him no end, still, always, every day. I think of him every day. He's been with me every day since he died, 1976. So I would love to have my grandfather to my fake brunch with Loki Iconoclastes, so that they can see what I'm up to, and I can see what he thinks about it. My ideas are very different from what his ideas were in 1976 when he died. But I know that he had a large enough mind that he could encompass anything, and I think I could probably persuade him to my point of view, because he was so sincerely interested in doing the right thing by his family. And that's really where my philosophy is aimed. I keep telling you that I'm interested in your family, I'm interested in improving your family. That's all I'm interested in. I want you to have a better family because we will have all the civilization that we can have, we will have as a result of your family. And Johnny Kosurik is the one who taught me to value the family in that way. And I think that the ideas that I'm producing now are completely in keeping with the high value that he said on the importance of the family in human life. It's trying not to cry. I'd love to have my grandpa. I would very much welcome having Ayn Rand at this brunch. And, it might be that she would really love the experience, and it might be that she would storm out before they serve the strawberries. Where I am philosophically is an empathy of opposites with Rand in very important ways, in egoism in particular, but in consequence also in political philosophy and anarchism, and in significant ways, as you just saw, with respect to capitalism, because we just demonstrated that securities trading, which Ayn Rand was a big fan of and had Francisco d'Anconia doing, profiting on other people's mistakes, by the way. Go read what she says about it. What he's doing is profiting on other people's mistakes. He's not producing any new value whatever. And it's not as if he's lending startup capital to entrepreneurs, which is what venture capitalists do. And that is true capitalism. It is huge risk. It's why people say poker looks like capitalism, because venture capitalism is capitalism. It truly is investment. Whereas securities trading is not investment. It's trading around investments that have already occurred. Money that's already been turned into investment capital has been invested and hopefully is producing wealth, but that money was invested long ago. The money that you're throwing around now is just toilet paper, and you got some toilet paper that you're trading, hoping to trade for better toilet paper, and you're hoping that the guy you're trading with doesn't know the quality of the toilet paper that he has. It's exactly like buying used guitars at yard sales. If you devote your Saturday to driving around to every yard sale you see, and just, you have to learn how to buy guitars, but look for the Strats, look for the Telecasters, look for the Les Pauls, the genuine article. I saw a gold top Les Paul, beautiful 1957 gold top Les Paul that had been sitting under a bed for 20 years. The kid picked up for nothing. He had, I mean, unbelievable, $3,000 guitar that he bought at a yard sale for 35 bucks. For real. That's what you're doing when you're trading securities, is you're depending on other people not to know what they have, or to mistake what they have in any case, and that your knowledge is better, and neener, neener, neener. It's very much the idea of wealth for high C's is taking it from somebody else rather than producing it yourself. And for D, it's exactly the opposite. The wealth that I got by taking it isn't money won is better than money earned. That's what you hear all the time. A D never sees it that way. A D says the money I earned is way better. But in reality, a D isn't interested in money at all. He's interested in getting stuff done, and you can't do that at secondhand. I can't take pride in other people's accomplishments. I can only accomplish them directly. This, by the way, is the connection between reptilian motivations and Marxism, and I can demonstrate that too. But a reason that I would want to have Ayn Rand at my brunch is kind of to put the screws to her twice. One is in the spreadsheet that I built yesterday. Cell J6, that may change because I shuffle columns around, but it's J6 right now. How do high C's love? By not rejecting. That's how they love, is by not rejecting. That is literally the truth, that a high C's love is for the person that he didn't reject in the same way that he rejected everyone else. And frankly, a high D's love is the same kind of love, only it's a matter of time at that point. That a high C will reject everyone in order to eliminate chaos and disorder, and a high D will tend to reject everyone in order to maximize his time. So in the Fountainhead, you see Ayn Rand say, love is exception making. And it's really poetic. It's really, really a decent sentiment. It's really nice. Love is exception making, and it really resonated with me when I first read it, and it's been with me ever since. When something airs, how do you know when something's art? Because you can quote it verbatim. God damn it, it won't let you loose. That's how you know. The practical ontology of what's real art for you is the stuff that won't turn you loose, the stuff that gets in your head and stays there forever. This is what I want to do. This is my job. God help me, I'm going to get better at it. But she said, love is exception making. And I liked it, and at the same time, I kind of didn't like it, and I really didn't know why until I saw that box, J6. 6, that high C's love by not rejecting, and Ayn Rand was very much a high C. She was INTJ-CI at the most, and maybe just high C. Maybe the I came on later. The I was kind of a introvert need. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, because she really was very emotionally needy. So that implies I or S, but she was very high C in the way that she worked. I mean, she worked like a reptile, and you could tell by the amount of work that she piled up. Just like we said, the high C is the one with all the documents at the meeting. Ayn Rand was the one with all the documents at the bookstore. She wrote books that were 5 times longer than anybody else's books, and 5 times more brutal for the reader in terms of the things that she would put you through, and she's good at it. She's really good at it. The criticism that Ayn Rand gets as a novelist is really unfair, because Ayn Rand displays an enormous understanding of human character, human motivation. There is so much going on in her books that is really, truly remarkable and is unprecedented in the world of fiction. The criticism she gets is unfair, and the reason that she gets it, I mean, partly is because she's being criticized by Marxists who are attempting to besmirch her in order to kill her philosophical message. But to the extent that people are even evaluating her work honestly, they don't have any lens for evaluating. They don't understand what she's doing, and therefore they can't evaluate what she did. We talked about this in 9 Empathies. Until you know what the intent was, you don't know what the action was. You only know what you saw. You don't know what the reason was. And without being able to understand Rand's fiction at a much deeper level, and I don't know that my level is deep enough, but I know that I'm much deeper than anywhere else. I can tell you all kinds of things. Ayn Rand was an INTJ high C who idealized INTJ high Ds. Howard Rourke, Hank Rearden, John Galt, Francisco d'Anconia, even Dagny, INTJ high D, doers, doers, doers. Very intellectual, but doers. Not Rand was an intellectual thinker. She was passive and didn't like it. Didn't like it in her own character that she was so passive, and yet all she idealized was her direct opposite. Everything that she was except active instead of passive, that was all she idealized. Gail Winan is an ENTJ high D. His only difference from Howard Rourke is that he's an extrovert instead of an introvert. He needs people. That's one level. I can do the Fountainhead as architecture. I can do the architecture of the Fountainhead as the architecture of a novel. And I can show you how she built the architecture. I can show you what her outline looked like. I can diagram her original outline and show you how the novel proceeded along that basis. I can connect it back to Henrik Ibsen, who was our next guest at the brunch table. There are all kinds of ways that I can evaluate Rand's fiction that no one ever has in any sort of serious scholarly way, and yet I don't know that I've got it all either, because all I know is what I know. I just know that I know more than other people, and therefore I know that there's a lot more there than she gets credit for as a novelist. As a philosopher, she deserves significant credit and significant criticism, and I'm going to get to the criticism right now. Another expression that you will hear quoted for Ayn Rand all the time is, emotions are not tools of cognition. Emotions are not tools of cognition. And what that really says is the appeal to emotion is a logical fallacy, which is true and obvious, not difficult to understand at all, that whatever argument that you intend to make, the position you took makes me feel bad is not dispositive. It's not a reason for me to change my position. In fact, if you're 3 and you make that argument, maybe I take it into account. If we are married and I said something that is really cutting and unnecessary, and you say that position makes me feel bad, I should retract it immediately, because I didn't take a position, I issued an insult. But in the course of a normal, persuasively valid debate, if I make a proposition and your answer is, take that back, my feelings are hurt, then you are 3, and I'm no longer talking to you. And that's completely appropriate. But when you phrase it that way, emotions are not tools of cognition. What you are saying to every high S that you're talking to is that you are persistently wrong. That's what she was saying. She's an INTJ high C. She has absolutely no problem keeping her emotions corralled. None whatever. To the contrary, the one emotion that she can't keep corralled is her anger, and that's the emotion that she uses to cow all of her followers, many of whom were high S's, probably most of whom were high S's, because who is it who gravitates to a guru? And Rand hated the idea of being a guru, and she hated the idea of what she had being a cult, and arguably it wasn't a cult, it was just very cult-like. And one of the things that made it cult-like was that statement, emotions are not tools of cognition, because all of the S's were constantly feeling all the time. It's their primary interface for the universe, is their feelings. They apprehend the universe by the emotions that they feel about the universe. And if you tell them that emotions are not tools of cognition, you're telling them that 98% of everything that you think is wrong. Not just wrong as to fact, but wrong as to morality. You are morally wrong. You are irredeemably, irreparably wrong because you can't stop having emotions. That was the way they heard it. It's not what she said, and it's not what she meant, but it's what they heard. And those people were horribly damaged by this, in very much the same way that the victims of Stefan Molyneux are damaged by him, with the added benefit of Molyneux goes the extra step of killing their parents, too, in pantomime. But Rand was cultish in that respect, in the sense that she allowed herself to attract all of these people who were fundamentally alien to her, very, very different from her. That the people who were closest to her, like Peikoff, Rothbard, some of the others, INTJ High C, they would have seemed very normal to her. You'll note that Rothbard broke up, possibly because he really was a D, or he had more D than C. But the others who were attracted to her were high S's, or had a lot of S in their character. The INTJ S is a weird combination, but ENTJ, EFTP, there are all kinds of different ways that people come together, only two of which really made sense to Ayn Rand. INTJ High C made sense to her because she lived it from the inside. INTJ High D made sense to her because she wanted to live it from the inside. ENTJ High D made sense enough to her that she could make her best villain, Gail Wynan, out of it. She didn't understand anybody else. Really didn't understand anybody else, and really didn't want to, because like many High Cs, she was convinced that she was right and everybody else was wrong. And we'll talk about this sometime because I think it's funny. The statement is there are two kinds of things in the universe, and the other kind is not me. I love that. It certainly describes my life, but I think it describes everybody's life, and certainly it described Ayn Rand's life. She did not understand anyone who wasn't fundamentally like her in every vitally important respect, every respect that was important to her. She understood the people who were like that, and she didn't understand anyone who wasn't like that. And saying emotions are not tools of cognition was a really hurtful thing to do to a lot of innocent, decent people. And I'd be interested to see if I could make that argument to her and have her not storm out of the room on me. I think I could make it in a kind enough way that other people might be able to take it, and it would be interesting to see if she could take it, if she could grow in this regard, because it would be fun for her to play with these ideas too. Another guest at my table would be Henrik Ibsen, and I invite him for two reasons. Number one, because he taught me everything about brutality in art, and I exploit it infinitely. It's the essence of the Random Again Willie stories comes straight out of Henrik Ibsen. That kind of brutality scaled down to a tiny little interaction. I'm showing you the second act crisis or the third act resolution of a 3-act comedy, and I can do everything that I need to do to tell that whole story, to tell that whole, it would be 90 minutes in the cinema, it would be 80,000 words in a novel, 8 hours to read. And I can give you that whole thing in 1,000 words or 1,500 words, just by cutting it down to the brutal essence, and I learned how to do that from Ibsen. So I'd love to have him there for that reason. The other reason I would want him there is just to be my representative of all of the other dramatists that I love, from Aeschylus to Sophocles to Aristophanes to Shakespeare to Ibsen. That's really as far as I get. That's really as much as I care for. I could throw Moliere in there because he's fun. I don't have anybody else. I love the drama, and because I love the drama, I love almost no dramatist. Invite them all in the form of Henrik Ibsen. And I'll do the same thing. I will invite Leonard Cohen for two reasons also. One is he is there to be my representative of all the songwriters that I love, because of all the art forms that I love, the one that I love most in terms of time, which is another practical ontological measurement, the one that I love the most in time is songwriting. I love songs, and I love Leonard Cohen as a songwriter, but I love Townes Van Zandt as a songwriter, Steve Earle as a songwriter, John Hyatt as a songwriter, and Tom Waits, strangely enough. I mean, there are others. There are a lot of songwriters I could name now, and so many that I've left out. But one that I would have to include would be Tom Waits, and it's because of the empathy for the opposite. That all of these men have the empathy for the opposite, and that's what I love in their art, is that they take me to a place where I wouldn't go without. But I want Leonard Cohen at my brunch table, just to make sure that there's somebody there who knows how to laugh when Loki laughs. This idea was suggested to me by a friend of mine, and I don't want to say his name because I'm afraid for the world right now, but he'll know who he is, and this is my way of answering his challenge that I couldn't give you 10 authors to save my life, but I could give you the 10 best books from every author I like, and no problem, whatever. I can't go to brunch with anybody. I couldn't manage a brunch like this if I did, and at least one of my guests would storm out in rage. But it's fun to think about, so I'm grateful to him for getting me to think about it. I'm grateful to him for giving me something fun to do. I am a hard-working dog, and I like working like a hard-working dog. When I get done today, I think I'm going to take a nap. My name is Greg Swann. This is the Church of Splendor. I'm so glad you could join me. See you again next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.